Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, a podcast where we explore what it's like getting older, the peaks, the valleys, and everything in between. In this season of Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, we're covering topics related to vibrant aging. I'm your host, Cheryl Proska. Let's grow old together. On today's episode, I'm joined by Alan Silverblatt, who describes himself as a computer geek with social skills. Alan has decades of experience in information technology as a programmer, technical instructor, and independent consultant working with individuals, small businesses, and nonprofits. He holds a master's degree in information science from the University of Pittsburgh. Now happily retired in Chestnut Hill, Alan enjoys model railroading, hosting a rock and blues show on G-Town Radio, and playing and singing in a band. He is also a Friends Life Care member. Alan, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you here. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you, Cheryl?
I'm well. Thanks for asking, and thanks for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Alan, you are here to share insights on how older adults can stay safe in the digital world. But before we dive into that, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and share a bit about your career journey and how you're spending your retirement.
Okay. Well, my career journey, I guess, has at least three phases. I started out kind of in the social worker, working in government agency sort of area. And I did that for a few years. And then I decided I wanted to go to law school. So I went to law school and I practiced law for, 5 years or so, and decided that really wasn't for me. And at that point, I already had some experience with computer programming. And I decided what I really wanted to do, what my calling was to go into an IT career. So I had to kind of start at the bottom then. I was doing working tech support and as a computer manager in a law firm. And I realized that I'd have to get a credential if I was going to really make a career out of it. So I went back to school again and got a master's in information science, And that was more than 30 years ago. So that's been my longest career and the most satisfying one.
Well, good for you for finding something that was a good fit for you. And now, as I understand it, you've also been able to do some of your information science, information technology in your retirement.
That's right. I mean, what I've done on a part-time basis, even before I retired, was help people with their computers, whether it's getting rid of viruses or small repairs or advising them what to buy or just kind of a general troubleshooting and training and support. I've been doing that part-time literally for decades. And since I've retired from my full-time job, I've kind of expanded that. And I work with small businesses, individuals, nonprofits, that sort of thing.
And I'll say more recently in your work with individuals and small businesses, helping them with their technical needs, what are some of the common digital challenges that you see people facing, especially older adults?
Well, there are a few things. I think one of the main challenges is hardware and software that are confusing or kind of assume that you're a young digital person and you know how all these things work, and that's not always the case. That's one problem. Another problem is that older adults are much more frequently targeted by scammers and thieves because thieves realize that older adults often have more resources and less familiarity with technology, and that's kind of a dangerous combination. Another challenge that older adults have, many people have, but especially older adults have, is they don't have their data properly backed up. So if there's a problem with the device or the device simply stops working, they may lose their data. Password management is another issue that people often have trouble with. They have difficulty remembering all their passwords for all their different accounts. So what they do is often they'll use the same password across all their accounts. And that's kind of a disaster waiting to happen, because if your password is compromised in any way and you're using it on all your accounts, you're making it easy for whoever hacked you to get into other accounts as well. There are also hardware issues that a lot of people have. And again, it's not just older adults, but I'd say they're probably particularly subject to this. They'll have computers that are older or underpowered. They may not be working well. They may not have been maintained at all. And if you don't maintain a computer over the years, it will generally start to develop problems and slow down. And you can often fix that pretty easily, but if you don't know about it, it doesn't get done. And finally, there's a problem with applications and browser add-ons that people get on their computers, often without intending to, and they can cause various kinds of problems.
So let's talk more about online security. We were talking about scams, fraud attempts, privacy invasions that can be out there. And you covered some of the reasons why older adults are targeted. So flipping that around, what are some things that older adults need to know so that they can stay safe online?
Well, I guess the number one thing I would say is to always use strong passwords. And a strong password is a password that has a number of qualities. It should be long and strong and complex. So rather than just a simple word, it should be letters, numbers, punctuation marks, rather than just making it 4 or 5 characters long. If you make it 8 or 10 or 15, you make it much harder to crack. Your password should not be reused. So if you're going to be putting a password on an account, you shouldn't be using that same password on another account, and you shouldn't have used it in the past. It should also not be something that's easily guessed. Lots of people they have to create a password, and they'll use the name of their spouse or their child or their pet or their phone number or their street number or anything like that. These are words that anybody who knows anything about you could easily guess, and they don't make good passwords. What I also recommend people do is, if they're dealing with it, they know they want to have strong passwords, but they're also having trouble remembering all the passwords for all the accounts and all the websites that they use. There are a couple solutions to that problem. One is something called a password manager. And what a password manager does is it lets you store all of your logins and all of your passwords securely. And to get into the password manager, you just have to remember one long, secure password. And once you get in there, all of your passwords are there for you. There's one that's called 1Password, which is very highly thought of, and there are several others as well. That's one solution. Another solution is, and this is really a no-cost solution, you can simply put your passwords into a Word document and save that Word document with a password. It's possible to save a document so that you cannot open it without knowing the password. Again, you want to use a good, strong password for the document. So those are some things that people can do around passwords.
I remember growing up, probably completely predates the password managers, my parents having a written out sheet of paper with all their accounts and all their usernames and all their passwords. And just thinking of doing that now seems just so draconian. And the fact that we can now have a password manager, which I have too, just makes it not only secure, but just so much easier to get into all the accounts I need to get into.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And with a lot of the better password managers, what they do, and these are usually the paid versions, but one of the things they give you, you can not only use it on your computer, but if you're on a website, it can pop up. It could have a pop up on a website. You can have it available on your phone, so it can really make life a lot easier for you. Another thing that I really would urge people to do is to enable something called two-factor authentication. And what that means is when you go to log into an account, whether it's your bank account or some other website or your email even, in addition to having to know the password, you've got to supply an additional piece of information. And that could be a code that was texted to you or a special code that they'll email to you, to your email address. That's a way of further stopping people from getting into your accounts, even if they find out your password. So I strongly urge everyone, use two-factor authentication on your email account and all your other important accounts. And what goes along with that, and a lot of people don't pay attention to this, is you need to secure your cell phone number. Because if you don't do that, and a lot of people have learned this the hard way, somebody will find out your cell phone number and they'll call up your cell phone provider pretending to be you and say, oh, I lost my phone, or I just got a new phone and I'd like to transfer my service to the new phone. And if the cell phone company believes them, they will transfer your number to a phone that belongs to the hacker. And then they can defeat your two-factor authentication with all the codes that are being sent to you. So I urge everybody, call up your cell phone provider and put two-factor authentication on your cell phone account. It could be a separate password that somebody has to have before they can make any changes to the account. There are different ways to do it, and the different providers have different procedures for it, but it's really important to do. I just got a new phone this week, and I had to, we had this set up with our cell phone provider. So when I went in to make the change to the account and have them activate the new phone, they had to see my license. They had to verify that it was me, and I'm really glad. Another thing that I would tell people is to trust your instincts. If something sounds a little fishy, if it sounds too good to be true, if you're not sure that the person you're talking to or who has called you or emailed you is who they claim to be, walk away from it.
That's a perfect segue into where we're going next, which would be, what are some other ways that someone can recognize and ultimately avoid spam, scams, and online ripoffs?
There's so many ways. What I like to concentrate on is there's a list of things that I call red flags. Mm-hmm. And if you see any of these red flags, there's a really good chance that it's a scam. And if you see more than one, it's virtually certain that it's a scam. So here's some of my top 10, let's say. If you get an email or a phone call that wants to talk about any of your accounts and they're not addressing you by name, that's a problem. You know, if your bank calls you up, they're going to ask for you by name. If the electric utility calls you up to talk about your account, they're going to ask for you by name. And similarly, if anybody calls you up and starts asking and claims to be from a bank or utility company or anybody you do business with, and they ask you for your account number, that's a big red flag by itself. What's going on is, especially with the electric company, is people will call you up and say they're with the electric company and they want to give you a big discount, and all they need is for you to give them your account number. And the reason they want your account number is so they can switch you to some other electric provider without your knowledge. It's a total scam. Anytime you get a phone call or an email claiming to be somebody you do business with, and it uses inappropriate language or has poor spelling or grammar or punctuation, that's a pretty big red flag too. If your electric utility needs to talk to you, they will send you something that's in proper English. I get a lot of scam messages myself, a lot of spam messages that are addressed to, hello, dear. Now, somebody you don't know is going to send you an email and say, hello, dear. I don't know why they do that, but they do. If you get cold calls or pop-ups on your computer screen claiming there's something wrong with your computer, that's a scam. Now, if you have antivirus software running, which you should, and I'm assuming we'll talk about that, and there's a problem with the computer, then that software will pop something up and you should recognize it because it's the software you're using. But other than that, it's probably a scam. Anybody who pressures you to act quickly is a scammer. They want you to act quickly so you don't think about it, so you don't question them, and you don't realize there's a problem until it's too late. Anybody who requests that you keep an arrangement or a transaction secret is a scammer. What scammers will do is some of them will want you to transfer money from your bank account or your investment account to their account. And they'll have all kinds of wild stories about why you need to do that. And they will tell you, when you go to the bank, tell them it's for this or tell them it's for that. Why? Because the bank people are trained to recognize these scams. So anybody who asks you to lie or keep something secret is a scammer. Here's another one that I almost fell for myself a few months ago. I use Comcast for internet and for TV, and we have some promotional discounts that go for a year or 2 years, that sort of thing. And I got the impression that one of my discounts was about to expire, and I wanted to talk to Comcast and see what offers were available to me. So I called them up and I talked to them, and they said, no, you're good for another year. I said, great, thank you very much. And then literally the next day, I got a call, somebody claiming to be from Comcast. They left me a voicemail saying they wanted to talk about my discounts. So I thought it was a continuation of the conversation that I'd had the day before. So I called the person up, and he sounded relatively professional, and we had a conversation. And he said, well, let me check your account. He said, I'm going to text you a code, and please read the code to me. So he texted a code to my cell phone, and I read the code off to him. And then about 30 seconds later, I went and I looked at the phone, and I looked more closely at the text, and it said, here's your code from Comcast. Do not give this code to anyone. If anybody asks for this code, it's a scam. And then I realized right then it was a scam. So I hung up, I changed the password immediately, and I called Comcast to make sure that everything is secure. So when you get codes texted to your cell phone, look and see what it says. And typically it will say, do not give this code to anyone. We will not ask for it. Anybody who asks for that code is a scammer. You'll also sometimes get calls or emails saying that your social security number is being canceled or it's being suspended or there's some problem with your social security. It's nonsense. It's total nonsense. If there's a problem with social security, they will send you a letter on their official letterhead. If you get invoices or bills or requests for payment for any goods or services that you didn't order, it's a scam. I get these regularly. I get email messages saying we're going to bill your account $400 or $800 for this antivirus or that antivirus or for Bitcoin or whatever it might be. It's just an attempt to scam you. And here's how it works. They'll send you this email saying we're about to charge your account so much money. And what they hope is that you'll get all upset. Oh, I didn't order this. They're going to charge my credit card. And they give you an 800 number to call. You call the number and they'll be very nice. Say, oh, okay, no problem. We'll credit that back to you. Just give us your credit card number. And once they have your credit card number, then they can steal from you that way. So if you didn't order the goods or services, it's a scam. Don't pay any attention to it. Anytime you get a request from a caller to allow remote access to your computer, that's a big red flag too. And this is typically called the tech support scam, where somebody will call you up and they'll claim that they're from Microsoft or they're from Windows, or they'll mention some company and they'll say they've detected a problem with your computer and they're calling to help you fix the problem. And I have a whole article on my website about how the scam works and how to recognize it. But that's what they'll tell you. They'll lead you through this, that, and the other thing to make you believe there's a problem with your computer. And then they'll ask for you to download a piece of software and enter a code or read off a code and then give them remote access to your computer so they can fix it. So if you do that, They can mess up your computer. They can steal your information. They can plant malware on your computer so it's used to send out spam. They can do all sorts of nasty things. Then they're going to ask you to pay them hundreds of dollars to fix a problem, which you don't have, of course, to fix a non-existent problem. And if you refuse, well, guess what? Then maybe they'll disable your computer because you gave them remote access to it. The best case scenario is you'll pay a lot of money to fix a problem that you didn't have in the first place. So anybody who calls up and asks for access to your computer is a scammer. The only exception to that is if you're hiring someone to help you with your computer, they may want to access your computer remotely if that's someone that you chose to hire. But a cold caller, absolutely not. Another thing that comes up really commonly is people will call you up and claim to be from your bank or from your investment company or something involving finances, and they'll say there's a problem with your account, that scammers are getting into it or hackers have gotten into it, and they need your help to secure your account. And it's all fabrication. What they're trying to get you to do in the end is to transfer money out of your account to their account, or to invest in bogus cryptocurrency or something like that. So again, anybody who calls you up and says you need to transfer money or you need to buy cryptocurrency, so they're simply trying to steal your money is the bottom line. So those are probably about 10 of the most common red flags that people should look out for. But what I want to emphasize again is trust your gut. If something doesn't sound right, just say, no, I'm not going to do this. If you think you really are talking to your bank, simply hang up, look up the phone number of your bank on your bank statement or on your credit card or debit card and call them up directly and say, did you just call me about a problem with my account? Don't trust people who do these red flag things to you.
A scam that I have recently fell for is I was getting text messages from supposedly Easy Pass saying that this was a red flag, urgency, like the final day to pay XYZ amount of money for not paying a toll through Easy Pass, which was pretty unbelievable to me because if you have, like, I have Easy Pass, so it wasn't adding up. And like you did with Comcast, I went on, I checked my Easy Pass account, everything was fine. So they can seem very realistic, and it is not out of the question that someone is going to fall for a scam. So one thing that you and I talked about was going directly to that company that is trying, you think is trying to scam you. So in addition to that, are there other steps that people can take if they think they've fallen victim to a scam or something doesn't seem right?
Yes, there are a number of things you can do. If you think you've been hacked or you think you've suffered a loss in any way, there are a few things you should do right away. The first thing you should do immediately is do what you can to secure the account that's been hacked. So what does that mean? Number one, reset the password. And when you reset the password, again, make sure it's a really strong password, 8 or 10 or 15 characters, numbers, letters, and so on. Second of all, make sure you have two-factor authentication enabled on that account if it's not enabled already. And then third, contact whoever hosts that account. If it's a bank account, call up the bank yourself. If it's an investment account, call up the investment company. If it's a credit card account, call up the credit card company. And again, look up the number yourself. Don't use any number that may have been provided to you by the scammer or the hacker. Call them up, tell them what happened, and work with them to further secure your account. And what you can also do in that case, if you act quickly, is you may be able to reverse any fraudulent transaction. You may or may not, depending on the circumstances. But that's what you want to do immediately. Reset the password, enable two-factor authentication, and then call up the provider and work with them to secure the account. The next thing you should do, if you haven't done it already, is do the same thing with your mobile phone number. If you haven't secured your cell phone account, call them up, change the password, enable two-factor authentication, and so forth. Then I would go and secure all of your other important accounts. So all your bank accounts, all your investment accounts, your credit card accounts. If you have shopping accounts, like on Amazon or any other online accounts, anything that can cost you money, you want to make sure they're all secured. After you've done all that, restart all your devices, shut them down, and then restart them. And then finally, let your family and friends and other contacts know what happened. And here's an example of why you want to do that. Here's another a scam that's been really common for a while, and this seems to have, I seem to get one of these about once a month, is I'll get an email that seems to come from a friend of mine, and it'll say something like, can you do me a favor? And they hope that you'll respond and say, sure, what can I do for you? And they'll give you a story about saying, oh, well, I'm traveling right now and it's my niece's birthday and I wanted to get her an Amazon gift card. Can you buy that for me and then read the numbers off to me so I can get it to her before I return? That's one way it goes. The other way it goes is you'll get an email from someone who claims to be your friend or your neighbor or your coworker, whoever, somebody that you know, one of your contacts, and they'll say, I'm in London and I just got mugged and I don't have any money. Can you wire me some money so I can pay my hotel bill and get home, and I'll pay you back when I get home? It's all a lie. And what they are relying on is somehow they've gotten into somebody's contacts. It could be your contacts. Most likely it's somebody else's contacts. And when they've gotten into somebody else's list of contacts, they get all the email addresses of people that they email with, and they start sending out these scam emails. And when they get them, they pose as the person who they claim to be. What they also do, if they haven't been able to actually get into this person's email account, is they'll simply open up a new email account that looks very similar to your friends or coworkers or whoever it is. And that's how it goes. So what you can do when you get something like this is simply ask them a question that the real person could answer easily, and the scammer could not. So if it's somebody that you went out to dinner with on Saturday night, say, what restaurant did we go to dinner at on Saturday night? If it's your friend, which it probably isn't, but if it's your friend, they will be able to answer. If it's a scammer, they won't be able to answer. But in that case, the bottom line is don't fall for it, and then notify your friend that they've been hacked in this way, because you want them to be able to notify all of their contacts, all the other people that they email with, so that they don't fall for this scam.
Would you prefer to age independently in your own home or live in a nursing facility? I know what I'd rather do. Friends Life Care membership offers just that. Plan today for a future lived at home with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience while protecting your savings. Learn about your options at a free seminar or webinar. Register at friendslifecare.org/register or call 215-628-8964. Welcome back to Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, where today I'm joined by Alan Silverblatt to discuss how older adults can stay safe in the digital world. Hearing all that makes me realize that hackers are becoming very sophisticated. And we talked about having a strong password. We talked about having two-factor or multi-factor authentication. We talked about securing your cell phone number. Are there any other ways that you can think of that would prevent these hackers from taking over our devices or getting into our accounts?
Well, there's a few things. I mean, one thing you should be doing is, everybody should have good antivirus protection on their devices. What I use and what I recommend to people is a product called Norton 360. And what I like about it is I have been using Norton products literally since the 1980s. So it's a solid company. I don't like some of the tricks they use to market their products, but their products are generally very good, and I've relied on them and I haven't had a problem with them. What I also like about them is you can buy versions of the Norton 360 that doesn't only work on your computer, it works on your PC, it'll work on a Mac, it'll work on your iPhone or your Android phone, as well as uh, Apple and Android tablets, work on all kinds of devices, and you can buy packages that will protect 3 devices or 5 devices or 10 devices, however many devices you have. Um, it also comes with some very nice tools, uh, depending on which version you buy. So, for instance, if you buy one of the 5 or 10 licensed versions, it comes with a certain amount of online backup. It also comes with a virtual private network tool that you can use. So um, I urge everybody to have at least some antivirus protection. That's what I use, which you can also use, which I think is good, but not as good as Norton, is Windows itself. If you're a Windows user, Windows itself comes with something called uh, uh, Defender. And Defender is an antivirus program. When it first came out, it wasn't so great, but it's gotten better and better, and it's totally free. So if someone can't really afford to buy a paid antivirus, at least make sure that you have this Defender, which comes free with Windows. What's also important to do is not have multiple antivirus products running on your computer at the same time. And when I work on people's computers, sometimes I see that they'll have 2 or 3 or 4 different programs running. And what happens is they start fighting with each other. They're struggling with each other to control what goes on in the computer. You only need one, and if you have more than one, it causes all kinds of problems.
So in addition to the antivirus software, which could either be Norton or another paid subscription or something free if you're a Windows user, there's Defender, but not having multiple antivirus software on your device. Is there anything else that you'd recommend for protecting against viruses and malware?
Um, Also, just be thoughtful about what you do online. So if you get an email which has any kind of red flag in it or seems sketchy in any way, don't click on the links in it. If it has an attachment to it, don't open the attachment. Or at a minimum, you want to scan the attachment using your antivirus software before you open it up. Another thing that creates problems for people online, and they often don't know that it creates problems, is what I call a drive-by installation. A drive-by installation means you are intending to accomplish one particular task with your computer, and it kind of leads you through a series of prompts. And as you go through those prompts, you get led through installing different pieces of software on the computer, many of which you may not want or need. So how does that happen? One way it happens is if you're on a website and you're looking to play a video or display some content, and it says, well, we need to install this add-on to your browser in order to do this. Think long and hard about whether you want to do that, because browser add-ons can cause all kinds of problems themselves. Some of them are fine. So for instance, there's a Google browser add-on, which is fine. There's a Norton add-on, which is fine. But a lot of them are just designed to steer you to particular products or supposedly find coupons for you, and they're at best useless. So be very careful about that. Another way that this happens, and I'm sorry to say, but this happens even with some really well-known products, is you're intending to install a piece of software on your computer, and as anybody who's installed software knows, it's a process. You run the program and you get a screen and you have to make a choice and click on next. You go through a whole series of screens. What you will typically see in very fine print, way down at the bottom of some screen, you may even have to scroll to see it, is a little checkbox that says, also install thus and so. And if you don't notice it, you're going to end up not only installing what you intended to install, but you're going to be installing something else that the second company paid the first company to piggyback on their software. So to give you a real life example, Adobe Acrobat Reader is like the premier software that almost everybody uses to read PDF documents. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a great piece of software. It's been around for a long time. It's totally free. But when you go to install it, you have to read all the screens. And somewhere down at the bottom of one of those screens, there's a checkbox, which is always pre-checked, saying also install McAfee antivirus. Well, if you already have an antivirus, you don't want to install McAfee antivirus. So McAfee apparently has paid Adobe to do that. So bottom line is, when you're installing anything, read all the screens and make sure that the things you only have checkboxes checked for things that you actually want to do.
Stay vigilant out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, data loss is another big concern. What steps can people take to prevent losing their important files, other photos, and their documents?
It's a great question. And the number one thing that people can do, and what many people don't do, is to make backups. And what a backup is, it's simply making a copy of your data and putting that copy somewhere else than the original location. So you could copy the documents and other important files from your computer, let's say to a flash drive or to an external hard drive, or to the cloud someplace. And that way, if the original copies get corrupted or mistakenly deleted, or there's any kind of a problem with them, you still have the backup copies. So this is something that I've run into many times helping people with computers. Is they'll call me up and they say, I have a problem with my computer and I think I've lost all these files. And the first thing I ask them is, do you have a backup? And if they say no, then I may or may not be able to get their data back for them. So it's really important to do. It doesn't have to be fancy. Like I said, it could be as simple as copying the data from your documents folder, if that's where it is, onto a flash drive. You can also use online backup services. And again, I'll make another plug for my website. On my website, there's an entire article all about backups and why it's important and how you do it and when you do it and so forth and so on. But there are two main approaches. One is to copy the data to something that you have on hand, which is a flash drive that you plug in or an external hard drive or something like that. And that's nice because you don't have to pay any fees for that. You control it. It's easily set up. The other way to go is with a cloud backup service. You sign up for the service and you install their software, and then it's simply in the background, it makes copies of all of your files. And every time you create a new file or you change an existing file, it detects that and recopies that. So you always have copies of the latest version. So this is great in a lot of ways because it's set it and forget it. You don't have to remember to do a backup. You don't have to think about it. It just works for you. However, there are downsides to it. One downside is you typically have to pay for it. Although, again, if you get a 5 or 10 license pack of Norton 360, it has a certain amount of cloud backup provided for free. And there are other providers that will give you a little bit for free, but you may have to pay for it. Another possible problem with it is if that provider, that cloud backup provider, has a data breach, your data could be caught up in that breach, and whatever confidential information you have on there could be exposed. If they encrypt your data before they store it on their servers, that will help stop it, but not all providers will do that. The biggest problem with cloud backups, and again, this is something that people don't usually think about too much, is something called ransomware. And ransomware is a type of malware that can get on your computer, and it's particularly vicious. What it does is it works in the background and encrypts, scrambles all of your files so you can't read them. And when it's done doing that, it basically puts a ransom message up on your screen saying your files have been encrypted, pay me so much Bitcoin or so many hundreds or thousands of dollars, and I'll give you the key to decrypt your files. So why is that a problem with cloud backup? It works. The reason is that if you get infected with ransomware, by the time you see the ransom message, not only have your files on your computer been encrypted, but the backup software has detected, oh, the files have changed, and it's copied them up to the cloud as well. So the cloud copies are encrypted as well. So for people who want to use a cloud backup service and want to avoid that nightmare scenario, I recommend something called iDrive. And iDrive is an online backup service that keeps 30 generations of all of your files, up to 30 generations. So even if that happens to you, you can go back to a previous version of the file. So that's basically number one, and number two, and number three is do regular backups. And people say, well, how often do you need to do a backup? And the answer to that question is another question. The question is, what's the maximum amount of work that you are willing to have to reconstruct from scratch? If that's a day's worth of work, you need to back up every day. If it's only an hour's worth of work, then you need to do it hourly. So it depends on what your workload is and what you're able and willing to reconstruct from scratch. But you should be doing it regularly. It can also vary with the circumstances. So for instance, for most people, a daily backup is sufficient. But if you are working feverishly hour after hour to create an important report, which is due tomorrow morning, you probably want to back that file up every hour, even more frequently than every hour, because because you're putting so much intense work on it. But that is the biggest thing that you can do to prevent data loss. The next thing you can do is don't share passwords with anybody. Anybody who needs access to a computer or to an account or whatever should have their own login and their own password, because you may share it with someone you trust and they may not be out to harm you, but they might share it with somebody else that you don't know, that you can't trust. So don't share your accounts and your passwords.
I want to switch gears a little bit. And that's, all good things must come to an end. And sometimes we have to say goodbye to our devices, whether that be a computer, our phone, an iPad, so on and so forth. So when our devices reach the end of their lives, how can we ensure that our private information, which is, without a doubt on these devices, doesn't end up in the wrong hands?
That's a great question. And again, one that people don't think about very often. What you need to do when you're done using your computer, you want to get your private information. First of all, you want to get your information off so you can use it somewhere else. So you can copy it to a flash drive, copy it to the cloud, whatever. But after you've gotten copies of everything that you need or everything that you want to remove the data from that computer. And there's a few ways to do that. One way to do that is to do what's called wiping the drive. And that's by using special software that goes and clears and actually erases all the data. And I want to just take a little sidetrack here and remind people, when you delete a file from your computer, that does not actually remove the data. It simply marks that area of the disk where the data was stored as being available for future use. And eventually it will get overwritten by some other data. But if you just delete a file and then you give your computer to somebody else, somebody who knows what they're doing and has the right tools can recover your deleted files. So deleting is not enough. You want to at least at least reformat the drive, or better yet, wipe the drive. That's one option. Another option is you can open up the computer and remove the drive and destroy it. So how do you destroy it? If it's a conventional hard drive, which is just a metal box, if you take just a regular household drill and drill a few holes through it, that'll effectively destroy the drive. If it's what's called an SSD, which is a solid state drive, which has no moving parts, you can destroy it with a hammer. Another option you can do is simply remove the drive and keep it. Give away the computer or recycle the computer, whatever, but keep it. That way the drive is not, you've got it so nobody else can get it. It also serves as an additional backup for all that data. That's one thing to do. With your mobile devices, with your phones and tablets, it's important to do a factory reset. And depending on whether it's an Android device or an Apple device and what version it is, there's different ways of doing it, but it's a pretty simple procedure. If you're not sure how to do it, you can simply Google factory reset, Android whatever, or iPhone whatever version it is, and the instructions are very simple. And what that will do is basically erase everything on the entire device and put it back in the same condition it was in when you took it out of the box when it was brand new. Now, if you want to pass a device on to somebody else, a family member or a friend, or you want to donate it to an organization who's going to use it, you obviously don't want to wipe or destroy the drive. So then what you have to do is simply selectively wipe the information that you don't want. Your personal information, can selectively wipe that. For mobile devices, again, you just do a factory reset because it gets rid of all of your personal information and just leaves the stuff that was on there originally. That's what you need to do. And a final point is, when you're all done with that, if it's a device that you're done with and you're not going to give it away or donate it, don't just throw it in the trash. And there's a few reasons not to do that. Number one, it's often illegal to do that. And second of all, computers and cell phones and tablets contain all kinds of heavy metals and other toxic substances that can really cause a lot of damage when they leach into the ground from a landfill. So it's important to properly recycle your old devices. For people who are in the Philadelphia area, on my website, there's a whole article about what to do with devices end of life, and it includes there are a couple of places in the Philadelphia area where you can recycle, and they're all over the U.S. places that you can recycle. What I can tell you is, I don't know if this is still true, but some years ago there was a thriving industry in certain third world countries where people would get just tons and tons of discarded computers, and they would pick through them and pull the drives out and see what kind of credit card and other information they could glean from these old devices. And of course, then when they were done, they would throw everything in a landfill and it would become a toxic nightmare. So you want to avoid that whole situation.
Absolutely. Well, Alan, we're going to have listeners who are very curious now and wanting to improve their own digital skills and their confidence navigating the digital world. Where would you recommend that they start?
There are lots of places that you can do that. Most community colleges and many local community groups offer courses in various kinds of computer topics, how to use Microsoft Word, how to use Microsoft Excel, getting familiar with Windows, getting familiar with your iPhone. So I would look around at local libraries, community groups, community colleges. There's usually either free or very low cost courses for that. There's also a lot of resources online. Some of them not so good, but some of them really very good. So you can Google instructions or training courses and so on. There are books There's the whole dummy series of books, Windows for Dummies, Microsoft Word for Dummies. Those are all good. You can also, if you really need hands-on assistance and hand-holding, you can hire someone who will work with you and show you how to use different pieces of hardware and software. So there's a lot of different options out there. There's also, I was just going to say, in Northwest Philadelphia, where I live, there's something called Mount Airy Learning Tree. And Mount Airy Learning Tree offers courses, various computer-related courses. In fact, I teach one of those courses about keeping yourself safe online. But they have a lot of others as well, working with, I think, with Word and Excel and iPhone, using your phone for photography. So there's a lot of resources out there. For people who are on the main line, there's something called Mainline School Night, and they also offer various kinds of courses. So there's a lot out there.
I was hoping you were going to mention Mount Airy Learning Tree and Mainline School Night. And then there's also you, Alan, and you're a resource. And I'd love for you to share how listeners could learn more about you and the services that you offer and access those articles that you mentioned.
Okay, so my website is silverblatt.net. That's silverblatt.net. And on the website, there's a whole series of articles about doing backups and keeping yourself secure and the tech support scam and what to do with devices end of life. Some articles about what you need to know when you're buying a new device. There's also a contact page so folks can reach me by the contact page there. There's information on the services that I provide. So it's all there, silverblatt.net.
And I will link the Mount Airy Learning Tree, Mainline School Night, as well as Alan's website in today's show notes. Alan, before we close, I want to go back to one of my earlier questions that we got away from because we jumped into all the technical components of the show. And I'd love for you to share what else you're doing in your retirement.
I am really enjoying my retirement. And I have to tell you, every day I'm reminded of something that my father said to me when he was about 80 or 85 years old. So he retired at 65. So he'd been retired a long time. And he just turned to me one day and he said, I'm so busy now. I don't know how I ever had time to go to work. And I know what he means now because there's always stuff to do. And a lot of it is fun stuff. So what am I doing? I have a radio show on G-Town Radio, which is a local Germantown area community radio station where I play rock and blues music. I play in a band, in a rock band, and I'm involved with model railroading, which is a lot of fun. So I keep busy, and I'm very happy to retire. And more, I too am wondering, well, how did I ever have time to go to work?
And Alan, I love having people like you on the show because you really are a shining example of vibrantly aging. And that's what we're focusing on, as well as a prime example of what a purposeful and planned out retirement does look like. So there's a lot for people like me, in however many years to look forward to.
I hope so. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, sharing about yourself, as well as providing these really important online and technical tips for our older adults that are listening to take and put into practice in their own lives.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. I really enjoyed being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, a unique program focused on aging with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience. You can find links and show notes from this episode on our website at friendslifecare.org/podcast. Thank you to Alan Silverblatt for joining us today. You can learn more about Alan by visiting his website, silverblatt.net, LinkedIn, and G-Town Radio. If you like our show, please rate, review, subscribe, and join us next time. To learn more about aging with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience, subscribe to our blog at friendslifecare.org/blog.